Hey guys, welcome back. So this is part 3 on this NAC generator. This one I picked up from the dump. Someone had thrown it away and the engine was not in running condition. So part 1 was focused mostly on getting this Honda GX390 to fire up. And by the end of that video, this engine was running and sounding good. Not to mention the Powerhead was making power. So I thought I was pretty much home free at that point, but I did see there were a bunch of other issues around the unit that needed to be repaired. So I cut the video at that point. Part 2 was focused on fixing all those remaining items to make this thing 100%. It wasn't until the end of the video where I brought this outside for the final test. And it kind of was the final test because about 10 seconds after starting the engine, it sounded like the generator went under load for a second, and then the power went out and I couldn't get it to come back on. So I shut down the engine, brought it inside, and disconnected the stator from that control box and tested the windings. And what I found was that the two main windings, leg 1 and leg 2, had shorted together. Unfortunately, the insulation had failed. So this power head is bad. It has to be uninstalled, and potentially I could repower it. I do have a couple power heads up there on the bench, but I don't know if they're compatible with this tapered shaft. So let me get it set up a little bit better and get going on this thing. I'm going to start off by getting that exhaust off. It's actually attached to the end housing and it's supported by the end housing. So I can't get the stator off with that attached, and this is going to be an issue later we're going to have to tackle, because if one of those other power heads fit onto this engine, the power heads are a different length and a different width, so the mounts are not going to line up. I think those exhaust bolts might fight me a bit, so I'm just going to brush some of that loose rust off the threads, try a little bit of PB Blaster, and hope for the best. Unfortunately, I cannot get that exhaust system off. It is hitting the frame right here when I try to slide it off the studs. I think really the only option here that makes any sense is to remove the bolts here from the exhaust manifold where it attaches to the muffler. Unfortunately, those are pretty rusted in place, so I'm not sure those are going to free up. So I'm not going to force it. I'm going to give this one some thought. I'm just going to move on to the other things I know I have to do. I have to get the battery tray out of the way in order to get that stator off, and also remove the control panel so I can get enough clearance to get things out. think that's it. I managed to snake out the bracket holding the exhaust to the stator, so I don't actually need to get the exhaust uninstalled. I'm just going to leave it where it is. I'm going to loosen up these engine mounts and then work to get that stator out. I'm going to use a puller to get the end housing off the ball bearing. Usually you have to be pretty careful because you don't want to break the end housing. They do break quite easily. In this case, I'm not so concerned since the stator is bad. Nice. We've got threads. So this should make this a pretty easy process. I'm just going to tip the generator back a little bit. We'll fill that shaft with water and use some hydraulic pressure to pop that rotor off. takes a few tries sometimes to get a good seal. Hopefully not too many because I'm running low on Teflon. Well, you can't win them all, and unfortunately, the tapered shaft on this engine, as well as the bolt pattern for the bell housing, it's not compatible with the power heads I have up there. So, it's a good engine. Unfortunately, it's going to have to wait to get a new generator head. And as far as the stator goes, the bad stator, visually, it looks pretty good for a bad stator. Really, the only issue I could find is right there. There's that little burn mark, and that's all it takes. Unfortunately, that was the hot spot that led to the failure of leg 1 and leg 2, and now we are where we are. So I'm going to check online just to see if that stator is available, new or used. I'm assuming not, and even if it is, it's probably cost prohibitive. So I'm going to conclude the video at this point, unless of course I find something of interest as far as that stator goes. And this engine, it'll be a good engine for another project. Anyway, I hope this video helps someone. Thanks for watching.